Backyard Professor Esoteric Studies coming at you hard on a very pleasant October 31st Halloween night. The kids have come and gone, and it is time to share some exquisitely remarkable mythological parallels. This doesn't mean that they were drawing from each other, but this is an actual, more or less, a worldwide mythic moment. I'll put it that way. I have been finding ideas very similar in the books of Enoch with the Hopi Kachinas and their ceremonies in their kivas, and with the Navajo sand paintings that I don't think are accidental. I'm not saying they had the Book of Enoch or that the Book of Enoch knew about the Native Americans over here in its day. I'm saying from themes, esoteric parallels, and the overarching cosmology of the ancients, there are themes here that are deeply meaningful to them. And I'm going to show you tonight how we can utilize this information for us in our practical lives, because there are practical uses to the myths, and that's one of the things that I really do truly love. So let's get started. This is a fantastic, the Book of Enoch just does not stop giving. Once you begin to get the idea of how to think mythically, everything opens up. You just see the light in all of the ancient cultures and traditions and all of their writings, their visions, their hopes, their theology. And it's breathtaking. It is just tremendous. So I call this Enoch and the Sacred Zipper. And what this is there is a descent, an encounter, a transformation, and a return. So the Book of Enoch, and when I say Enoch tonight, I'll be talking about one Enoch, especially the Book of the Watchers and the Book of Parables. This follows the same pattern that we find in the Hopi Kiva initiation, in the Navajo sand paintings, in the Hermetic theophanies, and in William Blake's prophetic visions, and various Navajo cosmograms. It is simply staggering how broad and how deep this goes. So, descent into the hidden realm. Yes, yet actually an ascent. It is a descent into the hidden realm, but it's also an ascent at the same time. And this is the paradox of the mystic. So don't let the paradox throw you off. It's real, but it's telling us something more profound than just this world in our space-time. And that's part of the point of these myths, is to break us out and open us up to transcendence. Enoch is taken from ordinary space into a sacred hidden space called the heavens, of course. But structurally, it's the same as entering the Hopi Kiva. The winds lifted me and carried me into the heavens, Enoch says, 1 Enoch 14, 8 and 9. Just like a Kiva is an underground world representing the first world, Enoch enters the primordial order of creation. Now, this primordial order is where heaven and earth and the deep, they all meet together. This is the same ritual descent that we see in the Hopi. When they step into the Kiva, they step down into the Kiva through the Sipapu, that is the portal of origins, the hole in the Kiva. It's the same thing as the Navajo sand paintings. The ritual re-entry into mythic time is what these sand paintings, with their full story and cosmology, teach the group as they learn about the symbolism in the sand paintings. It is the same as the Eleusinian mysteries, descent into Hades and the return. It is the same thing in William Blake. Los descends into the furnaces, and it is the same thing as William Butler Yeats. Souls descend into the gyre before returning renewed. All of these cultures and mystics and poets and prophets and authors are giving us the knowledge that there is more to reality than what we just daily see and hear. And it's beautiful. So there is an encounter with divine beings. And these are the Hopi Kachinas. They call them the star people because that's where they came from, the stars. We also, in the book of Enoch, encounter the angels and the watchers, right? Divine beings. The seraphim, they are exactly like the Kachinas. They have radiant masks of cosmic forces. They're given form so humans can see and interact with them. Enoch meets Gabriel and Michael and Raphael and Uriel and a whole host of angels. Each is a personification of an aspect of divine intelligence, healing, judgment, wisdom, cosmic fire. This exactly mirrors the Kachina dancers, and they embody rain and clouds and ancestors and stars. Or Blake's Los Urizen Enithermon, the facets of the divine imagination in Blake's system. Or in Yeats, these are the instructors in the automatic writing. They are the spiritual entities who are shaping the symbols. In the Hermetic writings, it is the nous. In the Poemerides, it's the cosmic mind, and that is what descends to teach humanity. In all cases, the divine must wear a form, and these come in different sizes and things, masks, symbol, a body, a star, a flame. It doesn't matter what it is. So the reason for the form is so that the numinous can be encountered. So there's a transformation. Enoch has the human who becomes the lapis, the stone, the theophany, the revelation, the vision, the experience of the divine is what we're talking about. Enoch doesn't just witness it, he is changed. He is anointed with oil brighter than light. I talked about this last Sunday. His body becomes luminous. His soul is measured and weighed and transfigured. In later Jewish mysticism, he becomes Metatron, the lesser Yahweh, the throne angel. This transformation is identical to the moment when the Hopi Kachina dancer is seen with the divine presence embodied. It is identical to the moment when Enoch becomes Metatron. There are robes of glory, and he receives the name. It's identical to William Blake when man becomes Jerusalem, and this is when Albion awakens, the mythic man. And W.B. Yeats, this is the poet becomes a vessel for the spirit's journey. There's always a journey. Yeats caught that. And in Hermeticism, the initiate becomes a star among the stars. And Tolkien even gets in on this. Frodo takes on the light of Galadriel. Gandalf the Grey resurrects as Gandalf the White, etc., and etc. This is astonishing. It's the same myth. And this is the center of the mandala. We're talking about the circular center of a mandala. Humanity is aligned with the divine pattern. This is the idea. So the sand mandala is wiped. And the parallel is Enoch comes back. There is a leaving where you either ascend or descend, and then there is a return. You come back. So just as the Navajo sand paintings are destroyed, they are returned to dust after their purpose. Enoch also must return. They write down all that you have seen and tell your sons. Enoch is told. That's 1 Enoch 82:1, if I remember right. Enoch is sent back to earth to teach the people the astronomy and the calendars and the moral law and the temple patterns, etc. That is, this is the cosmic order that is reinscribed in human culture. This mirrors the sand mandala swept away, and that means harmony is restored. It's the same thing as when the Kachina dancer leaves the kiva, the mask is removed, and the spirit ascends up into the sky. It's the same idea of Enoch returns, the vision vanishes, but the scripture remains. Yeah. Yeats' gyre widens, the form dissolves into new cycles. Same thing. Blake's imagination withdraws, only prophecy on paper remains now in that system. The pattern is always the same. We have a form that leads to a vision, and the forms can be all kinds of different stuff, but they do lead to a vision, which leads to dissolution, which leads to either something remembered or it's drawn out or painted out. So there's art, and then there's scripture. They write down what happened to them. That is the zipper, the heaven and earth opening and closing. That's the zipper. So does Enoch fit the Kiva sand painting cosmic map? Yes, perfectly. In the descent, we have the Navajo, Hopi, the Kiva, and the Sipapu, the opening. In Enoch, Enoch is taken up, and the symbol is entering sacred space. Same thing. In the encounter, we have the Kachinas with the Hopi and Navajo. With Enoch, it's the Watchers and the Archangels. And these are the divine masks. The masks of God is how Joseph Campbell called them. And then we have the transformation. In the Navajo Hopi, there's either healing involved, or there's some kind of a rain that comes down, a treasure from heaven, or there's a renewal. In Enoch, we have Enoch becomes Metatron, still a heavenly occurrence, you see. And the symbol, of course, is the human becomes the image of the divine. And then you have the return. Sand paintings are destroyed. Enoch returns, writes, and it's dissolution into wisdom. So we keep the wisdom, not the physical art. So the book of Enoch is a Western, more or less a Western Semitic mandala. It's basically a Kiva account from the Hopi point of view. It contains the same ritual architecture. The universe is mapped. The human entered sacred space. The divine intelligence is embodied. The pattern is enacted by the people, and then the form is dissolved, and from that experience, wisdom is brought back to the people for their enlightenment and benefit. So it's the very same cosmological zipper, opening the seam between the mortal and the divine, only to close it again, leaving behind memory and myth and scripture. So once you see it, Tolkien's legendarium becomes an Enochic myth in disguise. And this is what is so remarkable about Tolkien. He is just as relevant as the books of Enoch. Gandalf and Frodo, they both walk the exact same cosmic zipper pattern as Enoch does. There's a descent, then they have an encounter, they have many encounters, and of course, they do have transformation without question, and then they return with the light. This is a fantastic pattern. So let's look at the Enoch, Gandalf, and Frodo, the same initiatory pattern with these three. There is the descent into the hidden world. Enoch is taken from earth, the heavens. He enters crystal palaces, fiery halls, and he sees the throne of glory. With Gandalf, he descends with the Balrog through the deepest abyss of the world. We fell through fire and water in dark tunnels no dwarf has dared speak of. With Frodo, Frodo descends from the Shire into Moria, then deeper, finally to Mordor, literal land of shadow and death. There's our descent. With the encounter with the divine and or infernal beings, Enoch meets archangels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael. He sees fallen watchers who are chained in darkness. Gandalf encounters the Balrog, who is a fallen Maiar, like a watcher in flame, and he battles it at the Durin's Bridge. And Frodo himself encounters Gollum. He encounters the Nazgul. He encounters Shelob. These are corrupted spirits like the fallen angels manifest in flesh. It is the same thing. Then we have death, or translation into another realm with Enoch. He's taken alive, and his body is transformed. My body melted like wax before fire. I was clothed in garments of glory, and he actually becomes Metatron. With Gandalf, he dies in the abyss with the Balrog. Darkness took me, then I strayed out of thought and time. Yet he is sent back. Naked I was sent back, for my task is not done. So he is reborn as Gandalf the White. And with Frodo, he does not literally die, but he is physically destroyed by the ring at Mount Doom. His wound from the Morgul blade never heals. He becomes something between worlds. On the idea of receiving the name or a higher rank, God gives the new name Metatron, the Prince of the Presence, the highest of the angels. Gandalf receives Sauron's place. He becomes head of the White Council. His name changes in speech. You are Gandalf the White. Frodo is called Elf Friend, Ring Bearer, Servant of the Secret Fire. He is not higher in power, but he's higher in suffering and hence higher in transfiguration. When we get to the return to the world with the secret knowledge theme, Enoch comes back to Earth temporarily, and he writes books of astronomy, he does the calendars, he does the judgment, and he preserves the cosmic order for mankind. Gandalf returns to finish the war, guide the kings, restore the White Tree. He crowns Aragorn. He brings hidden knowledge of the West and the Valar. Frodo returns to the Shire, but is not unchanged. He writes the Red Book of Westmarch, just like Enoch writes his visions. And then we have the final departure to the blessed realm. Enoch is permanently taken to the highest heaven, throne beside God. Gandalf sails to the Undying Lands with Frodo. He is a Maiar returning to Valinor. Frodo also sails west. He cannot remain in the mortal world. Like Enoch, he cannot return to the world that he actually saved once translation is complete. It happens to him. So the key parallels, Tolkien can be seen as a mythic Enochian. This is astonishing when you begin to see these types of patterns. This is what makes the great literature so enjoyable to read, man. The Ascent After the Abyss. Gandalf is Enoch and Elijah and Metatron, right? Enoch, he walks with God. He's not found on the earth. Gandalf falls into the abyss and he returns radiant. Enoch is given the garments of glory. Gandalf white now and beyond even the power of the Dark Lord. So their transformation is not merely resurrection, it is hierarchical elevation. They become cosmic mediators. Now, Frodo, we can see him as the suffering mystical witness, like Enoch was before he became Metatron. Enoch is the first human who sees heaven, and he survives to tell it. His body is scarred by glory. His eyes burn. Frodo bears the ring. In other words, this is contact with pure spiritual corruption. He sees the wraith world. He returns unable to heal. He writes the red book like Enoch writes his heavenly books. Both become witnesses. And they don't conquer evil. They carry it. And they survive long enough to write it down. The ring is equivalent to the Watcher's knowledge, the forbidden power in the books of Enoch. In Enoch, the angels descend. They teach forbidden arts, the metallurgy, the enchantment, the warfare, the cosmetics. We all know that story, right? Well, these gifts destroy the world in the flood. In Tolkien, the ring power is higher knowledge. It's a subcreation twisted to emphasize domination. Celebrimbor makes the three rings like righteous watchers. Sauron forges one ring like Azazel teaching weapons. Both myths condemn power divorced from humility. That is the problem. Now, on the subject of the final sailing west, this is exactly equivalent at the very end of The Lord of the Rings when they all sail west. Frodo and Gandalf and Galadriel and Aragorn, all of them, they sail west. This is very equivalent to Enoch's translation. Enoch goes to heaven. Gandalf and Frodo go to the undying lands, Aman. It's not immortality, but translation to a realm of healing and light. Frodo says, I tried to save the Shire, and it has been saved, but not for me. Like Enoch, I have seen, I cannot remain. Perfect. So what does all this mean? It means that Tolkien mirrors the Enoch myth structurally, not literally, but structurally. These stories really do genuinely touch us because they're our stories. The question is, where are we in the story of our lives? That's the question. You have the secret fire of God. In the Enoch tradition, that's the throne of glory, the fiery angels, and all of that's described. In Tolkien's rendering, this is the flame imperishable. It's also the secret fire. You have the mediator figure. Well, Enoch, Metatron. The mediating figure in Tolkien, Gandalf, who is the servant of the secret fire. With the suffering visionary, Enoch and Frodo. With the forbidden wisdom, you have the Watchers, and they teach metals and magic. In Tolkien, it's Sauron teaches ring lore in the dark language. The ascent to God's realm. In Enoch, you have the 7 different heavens, right? Keyed up. In Tolkien, you have Valinor and the West. The cosmic book is the book of Enoch, and in Tolkien, it's the Red Book of West March. Galadriel, when placed beside the Enochic throne traditions and the Jewish mysticism, which I will show tonight, this mirrors the Shekinah, which translates out as the divine presence. It also mirrors Sophia, wisdom. So the feminine light of God, who dwells among exiles, guides the righteous, and is both exiled and exalting. See, this is mythic gold, what we're looking at right here. Galadriel is similar to the Shekinah and Sophia beside the throne. It's a symbolic alignment, see? And this same type of alignment is in Tolkien and Enoch. It's in the Kabbalah, and it's in the wisdom traditions. The feminine light at the margin of the throne, one Enoch in the Merkava mysticism, we have the feminine figure of Shekinah, the matronate, the throne lady. In the Tolkien role, they dwell in the radiant throne chariot and God's indwelling presence. In the Kabbalah, we have the kingdom, the Malkuth, the lowest Sephirah on the Kabbalah tree of life. We have Nukva, Metrona, and the Bat Kol. This is the exiled divine presence among Israel in exile, the moonlight reflection of Ein Sof, which is the infinite, all of that above the divine Kabbalah tree of the 10 spheres. In the wisdom literature, we have Sophia, wisdom, and the Ruach Elohim. We have they're present at the creation, they are luminous, and they weep in exile. In Tolkien, this is Galadriel, the radiant garlanded maiden. She's the mirror of the two trees, light. She's the exiled queen of the Eldar, and she is the bearer of light. Galadriel embodies an exiled radiance that still remembers the face of God, just like Shekinah in exile from the Holy of Holies. The parallel is just breathtaking. This is beautiful to find this in scripture, in history, and in literature. It's across the board. It's fantastic. Now, Enoch's heavenly throne and the feminine presence is another subject that is exquisite to look at. In 1 Enoch 14, he enters the crystal palace of God's throne, right? And it's a sapphire floor like ice. He describes this. He said, look, this floor is just shining and gleaming like crazy, looks like ice. He sees rivers of fire. That's pretty dramatic, you know. He sees the cherubim and the flaming beings, and near the throne in the later Jewish mysticism, we see the Shekinah. She's radiant and terrible and compassionate, and it does emphasize that part of it. So the key idea here is the throne isn't empty at all of feminine symbolism. The Shekinah is the mirror light of the infinite, like moonlight reflecting the sun, and she is described that way in the Zohar and other mystical Kabbalistic literatures. Well, this is Galadriel in Lothlorien. She's the last reflection of the two trees who were the original light of the universe made by Iluvatar. She's the light of Telperion and Laralin, the two trees, and it's preserved in her mirror and in her ring, Nenya. This is the Shekinah Sophia, exactly. And she is also exiled, just like Shekinah was. So we're talking the exiled remnant of the original divine light. This is perfect. I mean, they overlay like a hand in a glove. So there are shared attributes between Galadriel, Shekinah, and Sophia. And I'll share these with you. So the Shekinah is the dwelling of the presence, and Sophia is wisdom. Well, Galadriel is the maiden crowned with the radiant garland, or the lady crowned with the radiant light. The source of light is not Shekinah or Sophia's own light. It reflects divine light like the moon. And in Galadriel, her hair reflects the ancient light of the two trees. She holds a phial of captured starlight from Erendil. So in the exile, the Shekinah goes into exile with Israel, and Sophia wanders the world who is seeking a dwelling. Galadriel is exiled from Valinor for rebellion. She remembers the blessed realm, but she cannot return there until she renounces power. That's key. And then the dwelling place. The Shekinah dwelt in the tabernacle or the temple. She later wanders among the people in the diaspora. And Lothlorien is a memory of the undying lands with Galadriel. It's a living sanctuary in Middle Earth. Well, the role of the Shekinah, she guides, she intercedes, she hears prayers, she restores harmony. The role of Galadriel, she counsels the ring bearer, she resists temptation, she says, I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel. She preserves beauty and hope. In the symbolic element, the Shekinah and Sophia are silver, moonlight, they're mirrored, it's a mirrored reflection. With Galadriel, silver hair, the mirror of Galadriel, the ring of water called Nenya. So the connection to the throne, the Shekinah dwells beside God's throne. It's a feminine counterpart to Metatron in later mysticism. In Tolkien with Galadriel, in the Silmarillion, she is the kin of the Finarfin, related to Manwë and Varda. That's closest to divine authority among the elves. Varda's own title is Elbereth, the Star Queen, very Shekinah-like. It's the same thing. So when we put Galadriel and Enoch side by side at the throne, in the mystical imagination, we see Metatron, which is Enoch transformed, is the prince of the presence, and he's seated near the divine throne. The Shekinah is the feminine presence at the throne. In Tolkien's reflection, Gandalf the White, like Metatron, he is the fiery servant of the secret fire, and he returned with authority. And Galadriel is like Shekinah Sophia. She is the throne feminine. She's not a warrior king, but she's the keeper of the light, memory, mercy. Together they form a divine polarity. Gandalf is Metatron, the active divine messenger. Galadriel is the Shekinah, the indwelling of divine wisdom. Why this matters for etymological reasons and for a deeper study of this, the Galad means the radiance, glass, something shiny. Riel is the crowned maiden. So this isn't just hinting about beauty then, but a reflected divine light is what her very name means. It resonates with the Hebrew kabod, the radiant glory of God. When we read Galadriel this way, she becomes the exiled glory of the West in Tolkien, in the story. She's the memory of Eden / Valinor, and she's the final bright sanctuary before the world goes dark. Yeah. Now we come to the deep-cut mystical layer, and this ties Tolkien and Kabbalah and Enoch and the feminine divine into one mirrored cosmos. Galadriel's mirror and the sapphire sea of Shekinah are very similar in symbolism. Under the echo of the two trees lies the sea of glass and memory. The visionary parallel, Enoch's crystal sea and Galadriel's mirror. The location, Enoch enters the heavenly temple before the throne. There's a crystal floor like frost, gleaming with sapphire stones. It's also described as a sea of glass mixed with fire. Well, Frodo, he enters Galadriel's garden in Lothlorien. Before her is a silver basin filled with water, reflecting stars and the past, the present, and shadowed futures. Interesting. The function, of course, in Enoch, the fiery sapphire sea is a cosmic mirror, right? And it shows the order of heaven and the secrets of time. Yeah, is this starting to ring a bell? And Enoch is terrified, and yet he's invited to see. So the mirror of Galadriel reveals past, the future, or things that may never come to pass. It's not command, it's just seeing. It shows truth through reflection. It's very similar in some regards to the ancient Old Testament biblical Urim and Thummim, right? So The divine feminine presence in later Jewish mysticism, Shekinah dwells at the crystal sea, before the throne, the feminine reflection of divine light. When we get to Galadriel, she stands by the mirror like Shekinah beside the sapphire sea. She's not the throne, but the presence that reflects it into the world. Same identity, man, same function. The medium of vision, still water, or else crystal, which is also described in Enoch as frozen light. That's an interesting image, isn't it? It's the medium for divine revelation. And in Tolkien with Galadriel, we have the mirror's water, and we also have the light of Erendil's star and the light from the two trees from the very origin of the creation by Iluvatar, and it's resting in liquid stillness. So after the vision, Enoch must speak and write down what he saw. Frodo is changed by the vision in Tolkien's work, and he writes the Red Book, memory made into story. So Nenya is the ring of water. The elves were given 3 rings. Galadriel has the one that involves water, Nenya. Now, this is equivalent to the Kabbalah Malkut, which means kingdom. The circle, the Sephirah on the Kabbalah tree of life, this is Malkut. It's the lowest one. Well, this is the Shekinah. And it actually does represent water. And it's a feminine Sephirah. Perfect overlay here, really. So the symbolic element, Nenya, ring of water, we have Malkut, Shekinah in the Kabbalah, and then the element is water and preservation. The elves, not only just the ring, but the magic that the elves had in Tolkien was for preservation and hidden power. Well, in the Kabbalah, we have water, moonlight, which is a receptivity. The role, Nenya, sustains Lothlorien. See, it's a memory of the West. It's preserved in Middle Earth. It maintains the beauty against time and decay. Well, the Malkuth Shekinah in the Kabbalah, the Shekinah preserves the divine presence in a decaying world. She remains with Israel in exile, and she holds memory of Eden. It is the same function. The position, it's not a warrior force. It's a secret power that holds light together. This ring in Tolkien, this water ring. In the Shekinah, in the Kabbalah, it's not an active force like Hesed or Gevurah, but the vessel that receives and it reflects and it manifests the higher Sephiroth because it's the lowest one. So it's pointing up, reflecting the higher up Sephiroth on that tree. So the symbol is the ring, the water ring, Nenya is silver, and it reflects starlight, and it's called the ring of adamant and water. And the Shekinah in the Kabbalah reflects the moon, the sea, the color silver again. It reflects the light of the higher spheres, such as Tiferet immediately above it, which stands for beauty. Same thing again. Isn't this a remarkable overlay? The mystic function, of course, of Nenya, the ring of water, is to create a sanctuary outside of time. This is how Lothlorien is preserved by Galadriel for thousands of years. It's a sanctuary outside of time. Lorien as suspended. It's an Eden memory world, more or less. Well, the Shekinah in the Kabbalah, she is called a Sabbath space. There is a stillness involved with this where the divine and the earthly meet, and it becomes a sanctuary in time. Beautiful parallel. And again, in the exile, Galadriel is the exiled queen of Valinor, and she's preserving Valinor's memory. And the Shekinah is the exiled glory of God, and she's wandering with humanity. So the future, Nenya will fade when the One Ring is destroyed, the One Ring to rule them all and bind them together, made by the Dark Lord Sauron, right? Well, the elf rings are tied to that ring. So it's going to fade when that ring is destroyed by Frodo at the end of the adventure. And so her power is going to pass into the West. And the Shekinah, her future is to attain a union with the Holy One in the world to come. And that is what the West is. They sail west to the undying lands in Tolkien, and in the Kabbalah, the Holy One joins in the world to come with the Shekinah. It's phenomenal. So the geometry, the throne, the mirror, the feminine presence. It's a sacred triadic structure. The throne is Ein Sof on top. And this is represented in Tolkien by Iluvatar's presence, the creator in Tolkien. Okay. And then below it, you have the Sapphire Sea, one Enoch, and we have Galadriel's mirror. And then below that, we have the Shekinah of the Kabbalah. And then Galadriel is the feminine reflected light in Tolkien. And then we have the world in exile below that. And we have Middle Earth, very similar to Israel. This is the cosmic zipper. Heaven mirrored into earth through a feminine vessel of light. It's what we have in both traditions. It's fantastic. Why this is so powerful? Because Tolkien never names this, but he builds it intuitively from the same archetypal architecture. Galadriel is the last Shekinah of Arda. Lothlorien is the portable temple or the tabernacle of memory. The mirror, her mirror, is the sapphire sea before the throne. And Nenya is Malkut, the vessel of light preservation. Tolkien basically gives the West a Jewish mystical heart. It's exact. It's phenomenal. Now, what does the name Galadriel really mean? When we look at the etymology, and I'll do a deeper dive on this, for now I'll just give you a brief reference. Galadriel is in the Sindarin, the Sindarin language that Tolkien made of the elves, and it's the adaptation of a Telerin Kenya name given by Celeborn, and it is the Alatario. The Altario. This is glossed by Tolkien as a maiden crowned with a radiant garland. And so we have some hair imagery. And the radiant garland, of course, is gold, because this is a reflection of the earliest light of creation of Iluvatar in the universe. And she was there, just like wisdom was with the Elohim in the Hebrew creation account. So this is very interesting. So Nenya is from the Kenya, nen, meaning water, and it has the adjectival ya, which is of water or watery. It's therefore transparently the ring of water. It's the white ring. So this is a cross-traditional, a cross-cultural symbolism and a linguistic resonance. It's not a literal come down from the Hebrew to Tolkien, but it is showing you how the elvish roots must remain linguistically within his created philological system. So, I mean, we can find the parallels with the Hebrew and or other mystical types of parallels, but they are symbolic or more in line with the poetic analogies. They're not a literal etymology connection, between the Hebrew and Tolkien in this instance that we know of. So, Galadriel means the radiant garland maiden, but it's not from Hebrew. It comes from Kenya, the Elvish language of Tolkien. Now, the Hebrew Gal and Galgal, it's either a wave or a wheel, but it's used symbolically, not etymologically. It's a wave, it's a heap, it's a rolling motion. Psalm 42:7, all your waves, galeka, they passed over me. So the Galgal is a wheel, it's something whirling, right? Ezekiel 1-10, these are the wheels of the Merkaba, the throne chariot. They're full of eyes, and they're round about Yahweh's throne. The Sefer Yetzirah and the later Kabbalah talk about the Galgalim, the spheres. They identify these as the rotating angelic heavens, something to that effect. So Galgal is not a direct etymology of Galadriel, but it is a symbolic parallel, meaning something to the effect that it's a radiance in circles. It's a wheeling light. It's a reflected movement of divine presence. That's how we can look at that. So how we can combine these correctly is a wave or a roll. It's discussing the movement of light or form, more or less. So how can we use this going forward? How do these vast mythic patterns, Galadriel, Enoch, Shekinah, the idea of sacred mirrors, divine ascents and returns, heavenly books and books written, wisdom retained, how does this matter to us in our lives right here, right now? You know, it's one thing to read these sumptuous, incredibly astonishing and spiritually uplifting and fulfilling books, whether they are ancient scripture or modern literature is irrelevant. It's astonishing to read this stuff, but how do we put it to use? This isn't something we just study. It is also something that we can live. Let's take a look at this. Let's bring Galadriel, Enoch, the Shekinah into our lives right now today. The mirror of Galadriel. Well, we can say, wouldn't this help us practice reflective thinking and reflective seeing without worrying about controlling the outcome or controlling the other person that we're seeing? Galadriel says to Frodo, "For this is what your folk would call magic, though I do not understand clearly what they mean." And they also seem to use the same word of the deceits of the enemy. So her mirror, it does not force the truth. It invites you to see without grasping. So what's that mean to us? We can create space of stillness and in our minds as well, our physical surrounding, and in our minds go still so that our mind becomes clear like water. That's one image. We can look honestly, who am I becoming? What shadows follow me? What light is calling me? That's another way you can look at it. We can practice what they call non-controlling awareness. We see, but we don't seize. We listen, but we do not dictate outcomes. See, this is meditation, prayer, journaling, walking alone at night under stars, any place where the heart becomes a mirror instead of a hammer. That might be a helpful way to look at this. The Shekinah. the idea of honoring the exiled divine in the world. So in Jewish mysticism, Shekinah is God in exile. It's the divine presence dwelling with the broken, the overlooked, and the outsider. To live Shekinah consciousness, we'll say, right now, we see the sacred in the ordinary. Dishes, quiet rooms, glasses of water, hospital beds, traffic lights. We treat other people not as problems to overcome, but as bearers of divine presence. What if it is a true situation that absolutely everyone we see, hear, bump into, and interact, what if every one of those are the bearers of a divine presence? When you begin to exercise that kind of a mentality, you can just almost feel how it's going to change you, can't you? Because we're changing our attitude, we're changing our life, we're changing the way we think about ourselves and the way that we interact with others, right? So we recognize that God, call it the sacred. If you don't like the word God, it's okay. The sacred doesn't only live in temples or mountains or far away, but in every heart, and especially the suffering heart, because that is Shekinah. She's in exile with Israel, and they're suffering in exile, right? So we have that option. This is what Mr. Rogers, Tolkien, the Desert Mothers, and mystics all understood. There is no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Now, that's how the great theologian C.S. Lewis put it. You have never talked to a mere mortal. How could that change the world? As you and I begin practicing that, that kind of thinking, that kind of attitude and approach toward others, the stranger and our family and our friends, our co-workers, etc. See what I mean? So, and then we run across something very interesting too. In Galadriel's refusal of power. And this is such an interesting way that Tolkien puts this, man. Power means restraint, not domination. When Frodo offers Galadriel the ring for free, you remember that scene? Very powerful scene. She says, in place of a dark lord, you would set up a queen. And lo, all shall love me and despair. I passed the test. She turned down the power of the One Ring because she knew that kind of power would make her tyrannical. Her wisdom is exactly what our age needs. She holds power and beauty and light, but she chooses service, not domination. To live this today is to refuse to manipulate or control spaces, even when we can. It's to use the influence that we have to protect and heal and make beauty, not to bend others, but to enjoy their presence. You've never been in the presence of a mere mortal. We practice the courage of renunciation to say no to power that corrupts the soul. Enoch's ascent becomes a witness of wonder, Okay, so here's another angle on this, how we can put it to work in our lives. We recall Enoch's ascent. Well, he's taken to the throne, and this is not as an escape from the world, but it is so that he can return and write and leave it for the rest of the world to read, us, you and I, right here, right now, the books of Enoch. Like Frodo, like Tolkien, like all artists and mystics, our task is the same. Go up the mountain. Prayer, philosophy, nature, art, stars, music. Be stunned. And then return and tell others. So, we can write, we can paint, we can talk, we can sing, we can teach, we can make YouTube videos. The world doesn't need more arguments. It needs more witnesses of wonder. The practical path, look, this is simple, it's human, and it's doable. Really, for real. Here we go. Let's look at the mythic pattern and then how we can practice. Okay, the mirror of Galadriel. How about journaling, meditating, mindful silence, honest self-reflection in the mirror? That's one way to use this symbol, see, the mirror of Galadriel, the singular most powerful and beautiful, and I would almost argue important elf in the entire Tolkien saga. So why not use her mirror as a basis to get us to reflect on how to improve, right? How about the Shekinah? Compassion, presence with suffering, noticing the sacred in the small things, etc. How about refusing the ring? That's what Galadriel did. So did Gandalf. He refused the ring. So did Faramir. He refused the ring, I mean. So this is like ethics and leadership, isn't it? This is like choosing service over domination. Instead of bossing everyone around who's under you because you have that power, what if you were to work together with and accomplish something together that's kind of cool? You see, you just shift your thinking a little bit. It's really not calling for anything, huge and drastic. But even the little changes can make a huge difference. So how about Enoch writing what he saw? Well, this is creative expression, poetry, scholarship, videos, art, conversation, etc. Be more mindful about what we say to people. Leave them start practicing to leave them more uplifted than they were before they saw you or met you for the first time in the grocery store or whatever, And then what about Lothlorien as sanctuary? Well, you can create small Lothloriens, a garden, a room of beauty, a playlist, a circle of trust, etc. See, there's ways to incorporate these symbolisms and these stories so that we can have better lives and serve others to see the light, to be more positive about themselves, and to have better lives as well. So, how is this useful today? Because every single one of us, without question, are a mirror. We're either clouded by ego or we are reflecting truth. Every single one of us is a bearer of light in exile, like Galadriel and the Shekinah. Every one of us are a tempted soul, offered power like the ring, and every one of us are wanderers like Enoch, invited to climb the ladder and return with words. What kind of words are you going to share? Because we're going to be judged by what we say, you know. Myth is not an escape. This is really, this is the most important point I'm going to make in this whole video tonight. Myth is not an escape. It is a return to reality with opened eyes. That's what it is. So thanks for watching my Backyard Professor Esoteric Studies. Hit the like and subscribe. I do appreciate, and I'm very grateful for each and every one of you for talking to me in the comments in below the videos and sharing what you like. And I love doing this. This uplifts everyone, and that's what I like the most about it. So more uplifting coming up as I find more stuff to study and share with you. I hope you have a great night. I'll see all of you soon.